We are back. The Breakdown Boys, Wade, Sensei.
Oos.
Now, Sensei, we obviously are covering all things influencer boxing. Hey, yo. Covering all things in the influencer boxing scene. We have, as of the last week, had an interesting development and a topic of conversation I wanted to bring to you because I feel like it needs to be talked about a little more. There has been a back and forth between King Kenny, Leon Wills, funny enough, Anthony Taylor, Jarvis, all this craziness going back and forth in the last week. Have you seen this going on? Because as we all know, the Kingpin tournament's probably kaput, probably done for, right?
Kaput.
And with that being the case, Misfits Boxing is about to get some solid influencer boxers to come back on the card.
Yes.
Now, with that being said, there has been speculation as to will any of these guys be on the Prime card? And
Primo.
there was, from at least me and you, thought that Kenny versus Gibb should be, we were giddy about it, should be on the card. Turns out KSI said, you know what, full Kingpin, mate. Didn't do a good KSI, but
he said,
yeah, we not doing that.
Yeet.
But he said we will have them on our cards, and that leaves King Kenny, because we assume Gibb is probably not going to be fighting anytime soon. Who's his next opponent? That was the question.
That was the question.
And it seems like through a poll of King Kenny himself, he said Gibb's ducking, Slim's ducking, Salt Poppy's ducking. I don't know if any of that's true, but maybe. Only 2 people seem like they're on fighting me. Who would you lot rather see me fight? And Jarvis and Anthony Taylor were the pollsters here. I picked Jarvis just to see what it looked like. And
wow, Wade.
Yeah, I picked it because I wanted to see what we saying. And to be honest, I thought he'd be the underdog here. Jarvis wins the poll.
Wow.
Which shocked me. Now, that brought the conversation up because there was like people voting and like, oh my God, vote. From Happy Punch, it seemed like there was a mass campaign.
Happy Punch
apparently like started quote tweeting it like, go vote everybody for Anthony Taylor because Anthony Taylor's Happy Punch.
Yeah, supporting the guy. AT. Gang.
And then from Jarvis's side, it seemed like not even Jarvis, more so the Beta Squad and maybe some of Jarvis's people were like, go vote for Jarvis.
Yeah.
So in a Twitter space that I don't know, Christian, if you can get the audio for, but I'll try to sum it up. Mams Taylor said he is not going to do King Kenny versus Jarvis.
Why reduce your purse and reduce your stock by losing 2 in a row? And if he lost badly to Kenny, it would do exactly that. And I'd rather build Jarvis and build him on Misfits.
He only has 2 fights.
And have.
Wow.
And that he is straight shut it down. Nah. Said he didn't think Jarvis was maybe ready for that moment yet in his first fight on Misfits. But that he is going to do Kenny, potentially, he said, versus Anthony Taylor, potentially for a Misfits belt.
Well, we talked about this, but I can also, what you just said, enlighten me a little bit here. When Mayhem said the thing about Jarvis, maybe he's not ready.
Right.
It's a nice way of saying I don't think he deserves to be on the Prime card. And I think Anthony Taylor does. He's been a Misfits guy.
Yeah.
He's fought a lot. He deserves to be on the card. And Kenny's a guy who's won, who's
made his name
himself.
Yep.
And has fought at Misfits. Fought me in Misfits.
Yep.
Fought and then fought Raksu in Misfits.
Yep.
So and DK, right? 3 fights at Misfits.
Yeah.
Right. So 3 fights at Misfits. So it's almost like he wants these guys to also be on the card. So I would think that he's going to lean more to AT.
Yeah.
In that point.
I mean,
so maybe it's
there's
more
a little
of
bit
that
of that.
than Jarvis isn't ready.
There's a little bit of that, but I also think it's Jarvis coming off a loss to the guy that Kenny was supposed to fight in the finals of Kingpin.
Yeah, or fight the guy who just beat Salt Poppy.
Or fight the guy who just beat Salt Poppy. And again, if this is going to be for a belt, you probably don't, no offense to Jarvis, because we think Jarvis has got some of the most upside in the scene in just a couple.
Yeah.
It just needs more time. But to bring him in and have him fight for a title right away off a loss probably doesn't make the most sense.
Yeah.
You know? Now, this spurred an argument that I figured we would get at some point. And a lot of people, even when I quote tweeted this, were saying, Anthony Taylor's a pro fighter. We're not supposed to have our pros fighting influencers. Which, again, I agree with as a base statement. I agree with that. Most pro fighters shouldn't be fighting our influencers. Now, the conversation gets a little more nuanced when we talk about what the levels are of the fighters. Let's separate the pro fighter from the influencer fighter, because that seems to be the argument. The argument really should be the levels of fighters, whether they're crossover, pro, influencer.
You have, pro fighters, world champs. You know what I'm saying?
There's levels here. There's levels.
There's levels.
Right? No one here is arguing that Idris Virgo should be fighting Slim. When that came out of his mouth, everyone went, yeah, no. That's a demolition job. Please don't do that. That makes no sense, right?
Oh, jeez.
Even this Anthony Taylor fight will be probably, outside of you, in my opinion, one of the biggest tests Kenny has had, if not the biggest.
Right. Yep.
Because Anthony Taylor is an experienced fighter. Now, when you talk about pro boxing, it takes this. Taking a picture on your phone, getting sanctioned by a commission to get your pro card. And the sanctioning really is nothing. I mean, let's be honest, it doesn't take a lot. Can you pass a medical? Can you pass a physical? And sometimes, not all the time, can you pass a drug test? That doesn't make you a world's better fighter than King Kenny, because he isn't and as experienced as a pro fighter as you are, right?
Yeah, I mean, I can say the same for me. I was never a pro kickboxer.
Right.
I competed in a kickboxing fight with pro rules.
Right.
Right. I didn't have an extensive amateur career. I didn't look to go the route as a pro kickboxer, and or live the life of a pro kickboxer.
Right.
Right. So it's not. There are in fighting,
and you've been, and we've talked about this.
Boxing.
We've talked about this.
It's not the same.
You've been upset by the fact that you feel you've been overrated.
Yes, because they put me in the same conversation as other pros when I've only ever had one pro fight.
Yeah.
That was a kickboxing stint in Dubai on Vidal's undercard.
Yeah.
Other than that, they were amateur fights.
Yeah.
Right. And even at that level, I was taking amateur fights. I wasn't even living the life of as an amateur fighter and doing those same things. So there is a difference between pro fighters. The spectrum is very wide.
Wide, man.
Very, very
so
wide.
We should really be looking at skill here. And yes, like I said, this is a test for Kenny, but it's not like Anthony Taylor blew Salt Poppy out of the water in their fight.
Correct.
And that was where the biggest argument came from with all of us that saw the Salt Poppy experiment, that he had such a big push and such a big name, and they put him in there with Anthony Taylor, and it kind of zapped it. In the moment, a lot of us, and myself included, got a little upset by that. It's like, God, why did you do that? You know?
Yeah.
But at the same time, if it's not Anthony Taylor and it's an influencer with just around the same name, it would have been the same damage. You know what I mean?
Yeah, very true.
Ashley Raksu, King Kenny. Kind of the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The only difference is that you got Anthony Taylor, who's the pro fighter, so we all kind of picked up the pitchforks and the torches and went, no more pros. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it was the same kind of fight. It was the same kind of stopping of the hype, quote unquote. And look what Kenny did. He bounced back, got himself back to a position where now, potentially, he's going to be fighting a guy that, again, has a lot of buzz in this scene, but is a tough fight. That's what we're really talking about. It's a tough fight, right? So I don't think that we should be using this very broad term like, oh, pro fighters shouldn't be fighting influencers. We should be looking at it, like I said, from a skill-based level. And on a skill-based level, Kenny belongs in there with Anthony Taylor, I think.
Yeah, dude, the gap, we've seen bigger gaps between pro fighters all the time.
We've seen bigger gaps between influencers.
Right. Yeah, definitely between influencers. And then even pros to pros. If you look at the pro world.
Oh, my God.
You see
Floyd versus
pro boxing.
Pro debuter? No, bro.
Right. we've seen the gaps, right?
Floyd Mayweather off an Olympic gold medal, or I guess silver medal. Floyd Mayweather off a silver medal, coming in and fighting dudes. I actually think Floyd got the bronze because he got knocked out and then won the, or not knocked out. He got knocked out of the tournament and then came back and won bronze. Coming into a pro career in his debut was better than 20-year experienced pros. Was better than, guys with sometimes 10-0 records.
Yeah.
Was better than a lot of these guys. But so it's a skill and talent
base. Do you think there should be, because I do think there should be a bit of an asterisk if they were to lose to someone like Anthony Taylor, because Anthony Taylor is not doing the thing that we're like the Beta Squad talks about, where you're going we want to see the influencers who are influencers and not boxers. They get into boxing and who can kind of become the best from that similar situation.
There's a great point to be made about the belt, for sure.
Did not do that because he was already in the scene. So, Salt Poppy, there's a bit of an asterisk with that loss. It's not like he lost to King Kenny or someone else who was an influencer and picked up boxing.
I agree with you.
There's a bit of an asterisk there.
The only reason I'll say there's an asterisk,
Kenny deserves to get if something were to happen.
The only thing I would say is, as far as deserving an asterisk, is the belt, which I've had a strong opinion on the belt.
Yeah.
I've never liked us having belts.
Yeah,
I understand.
That's tricky.
I understand it's the representation of who is the best. I get that. And the whole thing we're fighting for, like you said, is who is the best influencer boxer.
And Anthony Taylor is not an influencer boxer.
The belt makes a little lack of sense to me, because what do you do if Anthony Taylor wins that fight with them?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? What do you do with that belt? It makes no sense to me to even have belts.
Right.
Because we can still have these fights and say they're the best without having that belt. I get it. Again, I get it for the lineage of, okay, you got to fight for this, mandatories, blah, blah, blah. The scene has gotten big enough for that, but the only asterisk I'll say is, yes, if the Beta, and by the way, the Beta Squad, there's nothing wrong with, by the way, people backing their guy.
Of course.
And I understand even the Beta Squad's aspect of even, and maybe Daly and Ken even think this, he's taking tough fucking fights, dude.
Right.
Fight after fight, it feels like he just takes on tough opponent after tough opponent. Wenderson obviously proved not to be as tough as we thought he would be, but he's had probably one of the toughest roads in influencer boxing.
With myself, he's taken with somebody who had combat experience.
Yeah.
So even myself, I'm on the fringe.
Yeah.
Someone like Anthony Taylor has a lot more experience and competed on a lot higher level than I did, a much higher level.
But this is why the influencer boxing scene is different.
Beyond the fridge. Yeah, and I think there's a credit to Kenny and Salt Poppy that they deserve more than everyone else, because they got to that level where everyone believes they should be able to compete against the likes of an Anthony Taylor.
Absolutely.
Right? So the fact that they get to do that is beyond an influencer belt, in a sense, right? Because influencer belt is just influencers.
It doesn't matter. The Misfits belt is clearly their way of saying crossover, right? Because they have the Le'Veon Bells, who's pro athlete, you know what I'm saying? They have these guys that are not necessarily
the crossover
influencers, right? Like, you could argue that 60 to 70% of influencer boxing does no influencing.
Yeah.
Like,
that's true.
Even the people that are considering themselves influencers, the only way you're influencing is by being on the card. Like, that's the only way people know you.
Even the MMA to boxing, even like myself, like karate, kickboxing, crossover to boxing is still a bit of an asterisk, because it's not football, basketball to boxing, because those are completely different entities.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like saying, we're going to wrestling tournament, but I'm coming from judo, and the other person's coming from tennis.
Yeah.
Not the same thing, son.
No, not at all. So we have this mixed kind of pot of influencer crossover, which is, again, why I think the belts are silly. Yes, Anthony Taylor is a more experienced fighter, for sure, which does help him in his boxing, right? His MMA experience helped him learn to box.
Yep.
Kenny, you could argue, has more specific boxing experience at this moment.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, again, it's a tough fight. It's a massive test for Kenny, for sure. And the Beta Squad going, our guy just keeps getting these fights, and it's not fair to him. I get it, too. If you're looking at how every other person in the influencer scene is moving and Kenny's not doing that, I get it. They should be frustrated. Why can't he get a, you know what I'm saying? Why can't he get a layup? Why can't he get a... But I like
look-
Kenny as a dog
Yeah.
for taking this, dog. He is a gangster.
To look at who are the only guys that have done this: Jake Paul,
Jake, KSI,
Logan with Floyd,
Logan with Floyd, Poppy,
right? And KSI, Poppy.
and now
What
Kenny.
you're talking
if he's
about
doing.
that you're talking about the top 5. You're talking about the best of the best. That have only ones that have done it.
And let's talk about that too.
So
If Kenny is to beat Anthony Taylor, the
Boom.
opportunity, in my opinion, the greater reward does come from beating Anthony Taylor. No offense to Jarvis, but if that's the argument, right? What's bigger for Kenny? What makes his name bigger? And even a loss here, like a loss to Jarvis is pretty brutal on his name. A loss to, like you said, a loss to Anthony Taylor, not really. Asterisk.
yeah, no, asterisks, 100%,
Now,
100.
a win puts him in the category of, and again, not necessarily the
Boom.
same, because we do have some caveats, just like anything else we've talked about here. Puts him in the category of KSI, Logan, Jake.
Yep.
Because those guys have fought and beat, well, Logan hasn't. Those guys have fought and been in the ring with people from outside of the influencer space. If Kenny was to beat them or beat Anthony Taylor, now he's in the Tommy Fury side of things, where he's like,
Yeah, you're the only guy to do it.
if he goes out and knocks Anthony Taylor out,
it's a
yeah, but you outfought Tommy Fury, 1-to-1 comparison.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
That's
Like
crazy.
that's a massive thing for him, and now
Kenny
his
just comes out and just gets absolutely yoked.
yes, dude.
Just looks like freaking Javon Curse, and then it just cuts.
You
down a
can
little
you
bit
can
and
make
just
an
comes
argument
out.
that he belongs not only as main event because of his following, because of his association with the Beta Squad, but also because of his skill in his own card. Like you have to give him a Misfits card after that. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? It's just a
Right.
massive build for him. So when we talk pro fighter versus influencer, the whole, I guess, basis of this video is there are levels here. Pineda is a quote-unquote pro boxer.
Great example.
Everybody in that 170 top kind of echelon, Poppy, Kenny, KSI, Gabe, name it, is washing that man into the dirt. It's not close. I know Pineda's
Who
got
did he
some
fight?
hands.
The one-on-one, he fought B-Dave?
B-Dave.
When he beat B-Dave?
He tuned
beat
up B-Dave.
But that's what I'm saying. We said that he was a pro fighter, but everyone understood
It wasn't, the pro
the
level
semantics.
of it, exactly. But to watch Kenny go and do this, it doesn't seem out of the realm of possibility.
Correct. And that's how it should be. If it's competitive, do it.
Do it, bro. Because at the end of the day, it's still boxing. Yes, it's influencer. Yes, the Beta Squad has a point. We want to see our influencers have some, champion of influencers, I guess. But you also want to see the scene grow. And this is a potential way for it to grow. Someone just got to break through. If no one can break through, then we all sit here like a bunch of dumbasses and go, okay, well, you knew what we were getting with this. But to be fair, we didn't ask for it. Misfits did this and made their bed, so they kind of have to lay in it, right? That's another point we're not talking about is like, you open the scene up to have growth. You have to play the double side of the coin there because the growth aspect is great, but the other side is you're opening up for other people that have a little bit more experience to potentially kill the scene.
Right. Exactly.
That's part of it, though. That's part of growth is risking that.
Yeah, that's part of the game.
Because if you run in circles with influencers, you're only going to find so many that want to do this, in my opinion.
And then if you get good,
those people...
Now the lines get blurred.
Exactly. And the people that would want to come into the scene are now 2-3 years behind. So you can't just put them in.
Great example. Like Kenny and I, like even though I had more combat fight experience, Kenny we're talking the amount of sparring rounds he did for boxing in just his lifetime was probably like 30x, 100x what I done.
Yeah.
Even when not like
when you were
in the
fighting him
past,
then.
like, when I was fighting him.
Now look at
right? And even now it's even more.
Right.
Right? And then purely training boxing from a professional boxing coach. We're talking levels. But obviously the fight experience still weighs that, but that's why the lines get blurred. Because you get people who aren't really training boxing, but they do MMA. They could be a jiu-jitsu guy like the Dylan Dennis, right?
Yep.
Perfect example. Fighter, Ben Askren. Fighter, but not a boxer. He
Yep.
never didn't really box. Tyron Woodley, same thing.
Yeah.
So here we are.
Yeah, I don't mind it at all. And this is why when someone's like, oh, KSI and Jake, they can't fight influencers anymore. Okay, maybe for the moment, right?
Yep.
Maybe for the moment. But let's say a Kenny gets a little better.
Saul Poppy.
Let's say a Saul Poppy gets a little better.
He's
And they
making
start upping that
making
competition.
That true fight weight. What are we going to see from that man?
That's what I'm saying. So it's not out of the realm of possibility. It's all fluid. Pro influencer, it's really about skill level. And I think in this fight, we have a similar skill level, maybe a different fight style, but a similar skill level. I'll hit you with this one. If it gets made, who you saying right off rip? Who's winning? Go.
Oh, it's so tough to beat Anthony.
That's
so
a perfect way to
tough
put it.
beat
It's
AT.
so tough to beat him.
Like, it's so tough. He's so good at winning rounds.
He's so good at making things. He slows down the fight and he makes a fight ugly.
Right. And
The
Kenny's
question would
had
be,
trouble,
can Kenny fight ugly?
Right, because he's had trouble winning rounds at time, and how does it see in the judges?
Yep.
It's
It's essentially
controversy.
Raksu with maybe a little bit more tricks.
Like, if Kenny's not dominating the fight, then like when it becomes competitive, it gets a little tricky.
It gets a little tricky because it looks like the guy that undoubtedly is going to be trying to put his head in Kenny's chest, swing overhands,
Right.
clinch, get back to it, swing overhands, right hand split the guard. The stuff he did to Salt Poppy. It looks a little bit more dominant in a boxing judging sense. Kenny would have, like I said, Kenny would be dealing with a Raksu with better technique, or not even better technique, but just more tricks. More
Yeah, but
old
we've
man
seen-
tricks.
But we've also seen Kenny level up,
I'm saying.
and we've seen him develop.
Because those tricks were not for kids when he was fighting freaking Winderson, bruh.
What do you think? What do you like?
Winderson's not him, though, so it's like
Leading up to my fight and leading up to this fight,
different.
like the Kenny that you saw versus Temper,
I thought you were going to
Right?
smoke his boots.
right? The Kenny that we saw to Temper and the development he made from then to fighting me,
Yeah.
and that gap that he had in terms of the challenge of fighting me. Then you see the gap that he has where he's at now into fighting Anthony Taylor. I feel like that gap is reachable for him easily.
That was
He's
1
done it
year.
before.
He did that in 1 year.
Exactly, and even with the one from Temper to me was a big difference. We're talking a couple months,
Couple of months, dude. So,
3-4 months.
and they continue to be in camp. We saw the difference on display in both of the fights in the tournament. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility to see Kenny winning this. I would say he's still a bit of a dog here, though. Still a bit of an underdog.
Yeah.
Just has to be, right? It just has to be because, again, we've seen what history has proven with Kenny with the Raksu fight, and that's the closest style-wise matchup I can give him for Anthony Taylor right now.
That is very true. Very
But
true.
doesn't mean that Kenny can't win this fight. In fact, I think he's very, very capable of putting on a masterful performance. I think he could win this in epic fashion and catapult himself. So if this fight, it's not even a real fight, we don't know. But if this fight gets made, I don't like doing the whole pro versus influencer thing was the reason we made this video, because this is a close skill-based competition, and I actually want to see it because they're not going to do Gib. They're not going to listen to me. I try to put it out there. They don't care. So if that one can't be done, give me this one because it's a fun fight. It's competition, and I like that Kenny wants to challenge himself when really no one else outside of Poppy wants that smoke.
Facts.
You know what I'm saying? Nobody else is going to take that fight. And that's why I think Kenny's a fucking gangster for doing it. So,
Dogs.
big time dog there. Kenny, good luck if that one gets made. Same with our boy Anthony Taylor. Good luck. It's a fun fight. We don't have the answers, though, if it even's going to get made. But what do you guys think in the comments? Does the whole pro versus influencer thing, does it bother you? Or should we maybe be looking at it in a different way? We don't have those answers. But October 14th, the Prime card is still open. We're going to see, do they make it on this card? Who are the other fights? I guess we'll find out.
I can't take no loss. I don't even know what it costs. I hit the ground, then I go